I hope that you enjoy. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Story number 1. Terror Tolerance, written by Master. Laura is a Nixon, a bipedal fox-like species known for their acute hearing and smell. She works for the police force in the city, hunting down offenders of the law when the force is spread too thin. Laura has followed her human contact to an illegal drug den where she has located her mark, a man named Lbry. He is currently under the influence of a new drug the humans have created. Laura bent down and sniffed cautiously at the new drug. It smelled like a burnt battery. She looked up at Walter. What category is it? The human gestured proudly. These are an adrenal category, specifically fear. The consumable takes effect immediately. The larger the dose, the more intense the experience. For when you need to spice things up a bit. Laura stood, expression skeptical. I'm sorry, you said fear. Why would, why? Walter shrugged. It's a rush. When humans are in danger, or feel like they're in danger, they get a buzz off of it. Same thing as horror films and jump scares. It just works for some people. She motioned to the humans scattered around the room, unmoving and silent. Why are they like that, though? You humans normally jump around or run away when you get scared. Both Randy and Walter snickered. Yeah, true. But this is different. The drug initiates a state of paralysis so the user can't hurt themselves. The effects are entirely mental, no residual physical effect, except the twitching and paranoia and hair-pulling that comes from heavy use over a long period of time. Laura squinted. It sounded insane. She looked down at the drugs. It was literally just the essence of fear. How would it even... She sighed, her natural curiosity getting the better of her. May I try some? Test it out, you know. Randy's eyes widened, and Walter nodded, eyes off to the side. It should work. We're similar enough. Take a tiny dose, though, so it doesn't last too long. Laura nodded and reached for one of the thinner slices. That would cost you, and it's not cheap. Just take out a tiny bit with your claw. She obliged, and sliced out a tiny piece of the red substance no bigger than a crumb. Without hesitation, she stuck it in her mouth and swallowed. If these new drugs were going to be on the streets, somebody needed to make a report. Her contact shook his head. You just can't help yourself, can you? Laura tried to answer, but her mouth wouldn't respond. She started to fall over. The two humans caught her and laid her on the ground. Walter stood and left the room. Let me know when she's out so that we can talk prices. Shouldn't be any more than a minute. Randy shook his head and held her hand. Her eyes stopped working. She couldn't feel the floor any longer. She couldn't feel anything. Time dilated, and her essence floated in blackness. Nothing existed. Then, with a feeling like being sucked into a vacuum, she was exposed to sheer terror. Dark, nameless hunters from primal ages of a planet hunted her down and guarded her. Then fire tore at her, then ice, and then she was drowning, buried in the earth and suffocating, then falling from the sky. She was in a room with shifting walls that had red eyes, and then in a place with no words being screamed at. 100 different horrors passed through her, over her, destroying her. Then the true fear began. Alone on a desolate planet with nothing but a burning sun. Then in an empty city. Then her own home, nobody was there. Her children were gone. Her cousin, the one she'd promised to pay for transportation to the city, showed up in front of her with empty eyes. The scene shifted. Laura was in the main office. All her co-workers were cheering for something. She looked down, and there was a plaque around her neck that said Number 1. She looked up again, and the hundreds of cells with inmates surrounded her cheering co-workers. Then she was at home. Her children were there. Then they ran to her. Lo, I'm hungry. Where has all the food gone, Lo? You promised it wouldn't happen again. She tried to reach out, but she was whisked away. Again and again, 1,000 different situations played out. Her mind screamed to run, but she couldn't move. She yearned to cry out, but she couldn't open her mouth. She was electrified with terror, invigorated with fear. She was alive, but so close to being dead. She walked the brink of existence. And then it was over. Laura sat up with a gasp and began panting, her heart racing. She wanted to scream, but the terror had left her with a numbed mind. She turned to Randy, who was looking at her empathetically. It's no fun, I know. We all had to try it. At a loss for words, Laura tried to get up. She looked around in fear, terrified that something might have followed her out. In front of her, her mark, the one she'd come into the drug den to recover, was at the table with a platter of crisis. She reached out limply and struggling to move. Lbry, Lawrence, Lbry, you need to come with me. The man turned around. His eyes were wide, dark, hollow. His body was shaking, especially his hands. They held small groups of hair from his head. His eyes twitched, tears starting to form. I killed her. She was right, and I was going too fast. God, she was so young. She had a stuffed animal, one of those penguin ones. Flew away as I ran right over her. He grabbed a handful of the cut of crisis and stumbled back over to his spot, muttering as he went. Can't let them find me. Penalty's too good for me. Don't deserve to live out my days being fed and warm by all that little girl's. Laura watched, horrified, as Lbry threw an entire handful of crisis into his mouth and swallowed. His body convulsed as his mouth formed apologies, and then was still. She looked over at Randy. How long has he been here? 2 weeks. End of story. Story number 2. Build-A-Bear, written by Lane Meller. Claire spun her crank around and then turned to the sullen man who stood waiting. He had picked out a skin, and most of the fluff had already been taken care of. Okay, do precisely as I say. Hop up and down 3 times on your right leg, and then take the heart and rub it on one knee, so that your buddy will know you'll always need him. Now your toes, so that he's sure you'll never walk away and leave him. She said in an overly bubbly voice, the one retail workers use when they're already dead inside, and she gestured for the tall man to complete the ritual. Then you need to whisper his new name to the heart before I sew him up. After that, it's picking out an outfit, of course. That seems a bit excessive and random, the younger man mused back, reluctance clear in his face, and ears and cheeks flushed pink. Look, do you want him to have a soul or just a huskless body for you to hug for a bear? She asked, in the same sugary tone. No one is above the ritual. Claire brushed back the mousy fringe that hung along her temple, long enough to be annoying, but not long enough to pull back with the rest of her mahogany locks as she patiently waited. His expression had gone sour. She suppressed a giggle. The older woman adjusted the straps on her long apron, checking that her name tag hung just so. Brushed her fringe back again. Pushed her horn-rimmed glasses up where they had slipped, then checked her jewelry delicately. Clients always hemmed and hawed for a variety of reasons, but they never turned away. A bit of strategic negligence was best in these instances. They were already here. He had already talked himself into it. She just needed to wait for that little voice to pipe up and remind him why they were both in the brightly lit shop. She smoothed out the wrinkles in her blouse, studiously ignoring her customer as she continued to wait. He piped up, Is all of this really necessary? It seems embarrassing, he replied shakily, staring at the glowing organ she offered him. And a bit more gore than I was expecting, to be honest with you. He was afraid to touch anything on the table. She noticed with amusement, hands hovering awkwardly. Do you want the perfect boyfriend or not? She replied with a snap. Because reanimation is a process. If you don't want to do the ceremony, let the next customer through. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.